Hi greedy 3Ders, I've really kindly been sent this compressor by Airgoo with a built-in tank to test for you guys today. I've also been sent this Elite Airbrush to play with as well. We're going to unbox them, we're going to deep dive into them, and more importantly, we're going to see them airbrushing things for you guys. Stay tuned. So here we have the AG-326. This is the compressor with built-in 3-litre tank from Airgoo. This is the one we're going to be playing with today and having a good old look at. They've also sent me this Elite Airbrush for 20 quid. Everything you need to start an airbrushing hobby is in here, including 3 different sizes of needles and nozzles, plus all the tubing and bits and bobs too. I think the first thing we need to do is get it unboxed, so let's do that first and foremost. Now, there's not a lot in the box for the compressor, as you probably would imagine. The compressor is in there, of course it is, and it is well wrapped and it's well packaged, and it comes with polystyrene surround, and there it is in its entirety, in its glory. It's a nice looking bit of kit. It's very shiny. Oh, look at that nice reflection. No, it's a nice bit of kit. It's been built well. It's heavy. It feels robust. It feels like it's been made well, and I'm quite pleased with that. Looking at the gauge on there, as you can see, we've also got the twisty knob there. You just have to lift it up to turn it, and there is a moisture release in there as well. Just turning it on to have a listen. It's about 60 decibels, and you know, it's in my man cave, and I've used quite a few compressors in there, and I have to say I'm not overly worried about the sound of it. It just sounds to me like any other compressor. The moisture relief valve underneath is working, and there's also a release valve on the bottom here to release all the air when you finish using with it. It's a good function to have, and they work absolutely fine. I just wanted to test all the bits and pieces before we get into playing with it and doing any airbrushing with it. Now, at the bottom there's also a moisture release valve that lets you get straight into the bottom of the tank to get any fluid out. Now, we've also got this Elite Airbrush kit. Comes with a lovely little box, as you can see there, and inside there is everything you are going to need to start your airbrushing hobby. So let's just deep dive into that a little bit, and we're going to take everything out. It starts off with a typical lead, a tube which connects to the airbrush. It's a standard connection fitting, so this will fit pretty much any airbrush that you've got, and it's quite a long hose. I need to measure that. I'll stick it on the screen when I get the size for that. You've got the airbrush itself. If we just feel it in hand, it's got a nice weight to it. It feels really lovely, actually. It's a Fengda make. Yep, nice, like it. Feels sturdy and robust. Yeah, look at that. Isn't that a work of absolute beauty? Now, you know, all airbrushes are not the same, and some of the cheaper airbrushes these days, they work just as well as the more expensive ones. I'm not sure what that is. Let me know in the description what that is, but it comes with a couple of different size caps, and I'm going to use one of those when I test it. This little spanner here is a nice thick one, actually. Sometimes you get thin nasty ones, but not on this occasion. There's a 0.8 needle and a 0.3 needle included. There's a 0.5 already in there, and to go with that, there's a 0.3 and a 0.8 nozzle with the 0.5 nozzle already attached. So let's get the tubing attached to it, and it just screws on as you would expect it to. The other end goes on to airbrush, and you are ready to rock and roll. Let's get the little cup on there as well, and that comes with a lid, 3 different sizes as I stated. Now, to get air out, you push it down, and to get the paint out, you pull it back, exactly the same as any double action airbrush. Just letting you have a little listen to it coming out. You can see I've set it to around about 30, and when I press the air down, it goes down to about 25. Pretty standard again. I think what I'm going to do is just put some water in and just show you it working. Let's have a look at it actually doing the job that it's meant to do. So as you can see, the double action connector there, when you push it down and then pull it back, it releases an amount of fluid depending on how far you pull it back. That's pretty darn standard for airbrushes. It's consistent. It's putting out a stream that is consistent, and I think that's really, really important. Let's just do it gently, and as you can see, you've got a bit more fine control. The more you pull it back, the more actual paint you're going to be getting out of it. Wonderful. all working as it is supposed to. Do you know what? We can see these working all day, but we want to see them airbrushing. So I've put a little bit of Army Painter white in, and I'm just going to paint this Joker head from Berserk Studios. Now, the first thing I can see is it's coming out evenly. It's controllable. I'm not getting splodges. It's not coming out too thick. It's really, really doing a lovely job on old Joker's head. And when I'm using this, the flow is consistent. I would say you get about 30 seconds of flow before the compressor kicks back in to refill its air tank, which is not too bad. Now, there is a bit of a debate going on about whether to get a tanked version or a tankless version, and I've got to be honest, for me, I don't really see a difference. Let me know in the comments what you think. Cleaning it out was a little bit of a doddle really. I just used one of the squeezy bottles, put some water in there, get it right into the depths, into the bowels of the air gun, shot it in. And that's what those bottles are really good for. You can really get them in well to clean the airbrush out. So I've put it in, and I've kept doing this until the water runs a little bit clear. And occasionally I've just squirted it through, cleaned it with a bit of tissue, and then around the end there as well, and finally I just put a little bit of airbrush cleaner in. Now I'm just going to prime this model, so this is going to have some thicker paint on it, and I had absolutely no problems priming a model. Again, this is just some Army Painter black primer, and it's done a great job. When you pull it all the way back, you get a really decent quantity I should say, of paint out, which primes wonderful. Now for Amiga Blue here, I'm going to be doing Rocket from Guardians of the Galaxy. Now this has been a little bit more of a delicate job, so I'm not giving it full spray. I'm just going to aim the airbrush into certain places on Rocket because I want to put that blue layer down, but I don't want to get the blue all over the gun. I don't want to get it all over the rest of him. So I'm using a little bit of precision here to just try to aim the airbrush, and the flow comes out lovely. It's continual, it's controllable. I'm really pleased with what I'm getting with this airbrush. The compressor, as I say, every 30 seconds of quietless spray, it will come into life at about 60 decibels and fill itself back up again. Now what I'm going to do here is some delicate work. So I want to see what my control will be like with it. So I'm doing inside Rocket's mouth, and I'm only going to use the tiniest pullback on the actual little joysticky bit on the, does it sound like I know what I'm talking about? The joysticky bit on the airbrush. I'm just going to pull it back a tiny little bit just to make sure I've got control over the flow, and I have. It's lovely. I've used many airbrushes. I've used expensive ones, I've used cheap ones, I've used all sorts of different brands, and I can honestly say this is just up there with the rest of them. I'm not going to say that it's the best airbrush I've ever used, but I'm also not going to say it's the worst one I've ever used, because they're all pretty much the same when you get into the detail. And I thought I'd just show you Rocket all finished, and that's him done. I did the whole of him with this airbrush using the Fengda airbrush and the compressor too, and that's Rocket all finished. So from my perspective, it's worked really well. I've enjoyed using it, and I will continue to use it moving forward. In fact, I've done a few projects that I haven't caught on tape. How old am I? I haven't caught digitally on my camera, but I have used it for many models, and it's done a wonderful job, and it's been consistent, it's been quiet, and I am chuffed with it. So I've been using this compressor and this airbrush now for probably about a month, just to see how it got on with a little bit more longevity. And I've got to say, I've had no dramas or problems with it. The compressor has ran beautifully. The airbrush has done everything it needed to do. I haven't had any blockages. I haven't had any problems. So I can only say as I find, and I find that they are both working wonderfully. Now, whether you buy a compressor with a tank or without a tank, depends on who you ask. A lot of people will say get a tank built into your compressor. My personal experience, and it's only my experience after a few years, is I don't notice any difference using a compressor that I've used for a long time with no tank compared to a compressor that I'm now using with a tank. I don't really see any major differences. Other people may agree or disagree, and I'd really like to hear your comments on that down below in the comment section. Also, if you like what you see today, think about subscribing to Old Greedy 3D. We do have a Patreon that you can join. It's as little as nothing if you just want to join it for free, or if you're happy to just pay a couple of quid to support the channel that way, that's absolutely fine. If you want to buy these things, there'll be a link in the description. It is an affiliate link. It'll be through Amazon, and a little bit will kick back to the channel. If you want to buy anything you see me using, then there's always a little affiliate link, and that's how I carry on doing what I do with Greedy 3D. Hope you've enjoyed that today. Please let me know what you think, because other people will read your comments. So let me know what you think about using these things, and I'll see you next time on Greedy 3D.